Good morning, everyone. It's Evelyn from Twin Flames 3344. I just decided to share a little bit with you guys this morning. I was watching K Moon's interview with Dove and Nicole, Lee and Sherry, and Sandra and Alan last night and this morning. And some stuff definitely was coming up, and some stuff within the interview that I kind of wanted to expand on. But if any of you haven't watched the interview, I suggest that you do, because you probably will get a lot of insight about your own union and coming into union from that interview. The first thing I wanted to bring up before I forget, and the cards in front of you, I did, after I processed that information this morning, I went to the kitchen to make my juice and my coffee, and I started tearing up thinking about what they were talking about and then how that relates to my own union. And K Moon had brought up her downloads regarding who does what in the union. So they were talking about the feminine being the intuitor and the masculine being the transmuter. In most cases, it can go back and forth. And of course, in some relationships, you know, they're more equal as far as masculine to feminine ratio. So just it varies from union to union. But I'd like to expand on that. About the intuitive end, because they're talking about the masculine transmuter transmuting the 3D drama around them and going through the addictions in order to transmute those addictions and all that kind of thing. So I'd like to parallel that, because something that I've always talked about was the masculine being the 5D, or the masculine being the 3D gate holder and the feminine being the 5D gate holders. And so in parallel to that, the masculine is transmuting the 3D level, whereas the feminine is transmuting the 5D level, which is the intuitive realms. So, in other words, expanding that intuitive label to being a death and dying transmuter as opposed to a 3D drama transmuter and addiction. So, when I had a session with Jill and Remy from 3 or 4 years ago, Jill had said that my union was very much like their union, and that I'd spent many lives helping people transition when they died. So basically clearing from them as they passed so that their next life would be easier for them. So, which was very interesting, because my father passed away in 2016, and not long before he died, I decided one day it's going to be... Sorry, I wasn't expecting that. I decided one day my dad really couldn't move much. He was in a wheelchair for many years before he passed, but the last 6 months he couldn't even smile anymore. But one day, you know, he couldn't get out of bed or anything like that on his own. So when he was just in a lot of pain the last 6 months, actually the last month before he died, I decided one day when I was there to just crawl into bed with him and just, you know, Reiki him, just hold him and comfort him. And at that point, like, his legs were just bones. There's literally nothing on his legs. And I just wanted to hold him and touch him and allow him to feel loved, right? So it very much paralleled with what Jill had told me about what I had done in many past lives, that I had helped people transition when they passed. So I just wanted to parallel that to the 3D gatekeeper and the 5D gatekeeper of the masculine and feminine. We do have both in us, but obviously the masculine usually has more masculine, the feminine usually has more feminine, and that is the role that they play. So being that the feminine in the 5D is the transmuter of death and transformation, there's a lot of crying involved, obviously, because when people die, we cry, which then explains, you know, why the feminine is crying all the time, right? So I literally cried almost every day for a year and a half, the first year and a half of my journey. And I still cry at least once or twice a week now. If it's not just because of a movie I watched, whatever it is, it always leads into some kind of wound that I'm clearing. So I wanted to bring that up. Something else I wanted to bring up that they brought up in the interview that I felt were very important subjects or titles to remember when you're going through your journey is the divine timing of it, that your higher soul has planned all this out, and there's nothing that you can do wrong in the journey. You're meant to come together when you're meant to come together. That certainly doesn't make it easy at times, but the other thing I wanted to bring up was the open heart. Remember to bring up the open heart. So a lot of what I talk about in my videos has to do with allowing yourself to receive, the grounding and integrating love, but always it's more difficult for us to receive than to give, right? Because most of the twins, especially the feminines, are always wanting to give, and it's very hard for them to keep their heart open to receive. So that's another thing to remember. So divine timing and open heart, and also to accept his relationship as it is in this moment. And that's, of course, the hardest part, is accepting that in the 3D level that he wants to be in this other relationship and not with you. For myself, the hardest part, I mean, obviously the feminine always knows that the masculine may not understand everything that they're connecting with in the etheric realms, and we certainly don't blame our masculines for things they can't understand or relate to. The wound for me is the masculine not being able to talk to me on an open level, and just even try to communicate with me. And also, yeah, the masculine has to understand that I know for myself, I never blamed him for the sexual energy because he has no control over that. However, it is very painful when they know that we're exchanging sexual energy and they won't at least communicate in a relationship with the divine feminine and be open about something and some aspect of their life, so the feminine can understand and not feel like she's going crazy. This is the wound, is mostly feeling the sexual energy and the lack of communication between the masculine and the feminine, that they won't open up and share their life with the feminine. So after I finished listening to the interviews, and I went to the kitchen to do my juice and my decaf, and why I started tearing up at that point was because my greatest fear as a 58-and-a-half-year-old is that he will transition without me ever having experienced him allowing me in his life. And I'm sure most of you feminines will agree the most painful part is them not allowing you to share their life with them. And it doesn't even mean in a sexual capacity in a relationship, that they won't even let you share their life with you at all. And also aren't interested in sharing your life with you. So something personal, I miss so much sharing with him. I knew my twin in a very professional capacity. And so he was very open and yet very filtered at the same time in what he would share or not share. And there are things that he did share he shouldn't have shared with me as a married person. And yet there's other things that he wouldn't share that for a feminine would have been very easy to share about their life. My twin knew both of my children because he saw them professionally as well. And this is over a 2-year period. So it wasn't just like, we met somebody a week, but he knew me and my kids for 2 years. He met my brothers and my sister-in-law, and even my sister-in-law mentioned to me after that time that they met that she asked me, was there something going on between us, because she felt that energy between us. And my twin used to ask me every question under the sky, and yet when I would ask the wrong questions, he would always redirect the conversation. They're very good at that, and it's very confusing for the feminine when they're going through that time in their union, because your twin sometimes is speaking to you from a 3D place and sometimes talking to you from a 5D place. And so it's very confusing, because sometimes they're very enlightened and then they can be so not, and they say things to you that you're thinking, but they don't know that you're thinking that. So there's this connection that you understand, and you don't answer them because they're saying what you're already thinking. So you're not answering, so the masculine doesn't know that you're thinking the same thing, and yet they do at the same time. So it can be very confusing. I just did share a little bit about my union. If it helps any of you guys, I know that I haven't talked about my union much, in the past couple of years. But we met in a professional capacity because when I was working, I had fallen on the steps at work, and so I ended up with a long, ongoing process of trying to heal my back. And then 3 years after that, I was jogging, trying to heal my back still, which is, I still have back issues, but it's much better than it was working. You know, when you have to sit 8 hours a day, it's a big difference. And that I can lie down at home whenever I want to. But I was jogging and I got hit by a car. So then I had a major concussion. I was out of work for another month at that point and had to wean back into work. And I still never was able to get back up to 8 hours at work between the back issues and then the concussion issues, which weren't related to work. And then it just came a time, and it was a pretty natural progression to leaving there, because the same time I realized that my brain just couldn't keep up with my job the way I used to. It was also when they were restructuring at my work and they were going to put my office outside the hospital. I was at University of Penn for 25 years. And they were going to make me do the same job I was doing from a block and a half away from the hospital, which there's no way I could have done the same way that I was working, because I was running up and down the stairs constantly to my office. So I didn't know how they thought I would work from a block and a half away. But it just worked out perfectly where I had to leave at that point. And I had kind of planned for that a few months ahead of time, realizing that I might not be able to continue with my job the way my physical status was and my mental status was. So anyway, the reason I met my twin is because I finally decided to stand up for myself. And when I was told by certain doctors that there wasn't anything else they could do, I did most of my own research during that few years and did a lot of the healing on my own, really. I found that the healing came from the doctors who did hands-on work, you know, like PTs and the chiropractors, that kind of energy. That the other doctors really weren't collaborating with each other. So again, most of my healing came from my own research and those who did hands-on healing. So I researched on my own to see where I could find more healing as far as professional help. And that was when I was guided to my twin, even though they were quite a distance drive to get to for regular appointments. I felt it was worth it at that point. But because I was loving myself, I was honoring myself by pursuing further healing, knowing that other people who should, you know, have known more than me as far as healing my body, right, because they were professionals or doctors, thinking past that and knowing that my intuition was more important than what they said, like not necessarily believing everything they said as the be-all, end-all, and them knowing everything, because they don't know everything. They know what they were educated in. So that was the thing that led me to my twin, which led to my awakening. I mean, I was awakening psychically before I met my twin. So it's kind of like all energetic. You just feel it in the air. My parents ended up coming home. My mother had Alzheimer's, so they had to come home from Oregon to the Philadelphia area. And that started right at the 2012 portal. Literally, we brought my parents home August 31st, 2012. And my sister had to move my parents into an apartment complex near her temporarily until we got them into a facility. So we got them into a facility they had chosen. So my mom and dad went around picking out the facilities that they would be comfortable with. And they had planned this already or arranged everything ahead of time. They were very good at that kind of stuff. So literally, my parents went into the facility 12 of 2012. And it was during that time, that fall, you know, life changes. I had just finished a technical program in fashion design, and I was going to start designing everything I had made during the 4 years while I was working full-time, and I was a single mom. So, you know, just going through that certification was a big deal, you know, pushing myself to do something that I love to do, that was creative, while I was working full-time and taking care of my children on my own. And I was going to graduate and start working on the portfolio that I actually created in school. But then my parents came home and I couldn't. We literally, you know, we're going up there at least every week to have dinner with my parents or spend time, help do the paperwork, and I'm involved with a lot of the paperwork for my parents. So that's been ongoing since 2012 for me. So it's been 8 years. Wow. So that's when I started my psychic awakening. Was really when my parents came home. My dad's always been a big part of my life. I feel like he was my kind of bodyguard through this union until I didn't need him to be there anymore. And that's when he passed away in 2016 because I was already connected with my twin. And so literally, you know, my parents came home 2012, just to give you a timeline. And then in 2013 is when I fell at work and hurt my back. So that's the universe's way of pushing you out of stressful jobs and situations that no longer serve you, which probably didn't serve you in the first place because they're always very stressful, and put you in a place where you can connect with your body. All right, so they injure you, or they make you sick, or they take you out of jobs, in a place where you can really be still and focus and learn how to meditate, or at least be more intuitive about what your body's asking of you. So I was doing a lot of body work. You know, I'd come home from work every day. I was working a few less hours. Well, initially I wasn't. I was working 8 hours when I was initially injured, which actually caused more injury to myself. And it was, at the time, there's nothing much I could have done because certainly at work they weren't offering me any time off. And of course you want to be the good employee. You don't want to complain. So you don't help yourself. And it's when I started not caring what they thought and following my own guidance is when things start to transform for myself. When I went to someone and insisted on they help me get time off to try to heal my body, that's when my life started turning around. So I was off for a month. After 7 months of back pain, walking around in pain for 3 months, I was limping. Then I had all sorts of issues. My right side was the main injury, and then my left side was injured because they forced me to work, which the limping caused more issues on the left side. Actually, I probably still have more issues on the left side than the right side from limping those 3 months. Anyway, I don't want to get into the whole disability thing because that's an issue too with the workplace. But it was not until 7 months that I stopped working full time. I was off for a month, and then I ended up going back 6 hours a day instead of 8. So I did that. In 2016 is when I was jogging and got hit by a car. So then I was out of work for another month because of my concussion, which was forced from work because they're not allowed, you know, there's certain protocols now with concussions they have to abide by. So I was out of work for a month, and then I had to wean back in. And so I worked another couple months. First it was 4 hours every other day, and then they weaned me back in. I got back up to 6 hours a day, but I still was having trouble doing a lot of the detail work that I used to do. And that's when I ended up putting in my notice. And I was supposed to retire that year, but because of my time off from my concussion, I wouldn't have had my full amount of sick time. So you only get paid out at retirement for your sick time if you have your capped amount still, right? So if I had my 960 hours, I think it was. So I had 960 hours for many years. But because I got hurt my last year of retirement, I could have retired in September and gotten my full payout, but because of my concussion, which I would have made up that sick time, you know, over the years that I had 960 hours because you're capped, you can't gain any more sick time, but I would have kept coming back up to the 60 in the time that I'd worked there. So, I mean, I should have gotten my full sick time paid out, but I never did. I knew I wasn't going to get that money, and I would have had to wait till September to leave in order to get that pension, but then I wouldn't have because I didn't have my 960 hours. So I ended up leaving May 31st of that year, 2016. I left my job. So then I continued my rehab. I met my twin the year before I left my job. So I was still seeing my twin through that year. I was seeing my twin from 2015 to 2017. And he knew I loved him. He knew how I felt. It was very difficult because anytime I emailed, a lot of times he would ignore me, but then I would see him professionally, and then he's a totally different person in person than he is by email, because they're trying to be professional and make sure they don't do anything unprofessional by email, all that kind of stuff. So it's a very difficult and delicate balance as far as the communications when you're seeing your twin in a professional way. So especially when they're married with kids and that kind of thing. So it became very difficult. I was trying to get past the, past my own blocks as far as the fact that he was in a relationship and there's nothing I could do about that, and try to be a friend and try to be open to that. But during the time I was still seeing him, it was a very delicate balance. And then my house got egged 3 times. That was in 2016 to 17. It was like at 12, 1, and 2 o'clock in the morning during a week or two where someone kept coming back and egging our house. And I've been in this house for 30 years. I'd never been egged before. And I saw the white car that egged my house the first night it happened. And it literally sounds like rocks are hitting your house. It doesn't sound like an egg. It can be very traumatizing at night. And it happening didn't bother me so much, but it bothered me because my daughter was scared after that because, her bedroom's on the first floor. So she was worried that someone, might, made her sleep time very uncomfortable because she wasn't sure that she was safe. So, my father had passed away in 2016, so I was going through that, and then went back that early December, and then after that one visit in December, decided I was going to try not to go back anymore. That was the first time that I really didn't go back for 3 months, and that's when I got egged 3 times. I didn't go back for 3 months, and then when I did go back, about a month or so later again, I got egged again. So I very much felt it was someone around my twin, whether it was his family or friends, whatever it was, who was egging my house, or kids who may have been upset. The one time I did see his wife, because I'd never met her, he didn't talk about his wife. The only time I ever saw her out in the parking lot, she had one of their children and pulled them to her when she saw me get out of my car, go towards the door, like, I was a scary witch person or something like that, and she was pulling her child to protect her in as they looked at me, so that was an uncomfortable energy. And that happened, that was like a year prior to when I started not coming anymore. So when I went back and I got egged again, it finally came back down to a point where I just wanted to go in one more time to make sure he knew I was getting egged, and that he knew that I thought that it could be someone that he knew, or his family or kids, that kind of stuff. But of course, he just blew it off like not a big deal, that kids do that kind of thing, not even caring that my daughter felt unsafe in her home because it had happened to me. And, God forbid it should be anyone that he knew that actually did this. And it's not like I was trying to condemn anyone. Just wanted him to know that this could be something he's not aware of, and that my daughter was scared at that time, and it wasn't nothing, and it's not something that kids just do, that it has, repercussions for other people involved. So when he still didn't really care that had happened, that was the last time I went to see him. I actually went to France right after that. I did bump into him accidentally one day where he saw me in a place and he drove in and drove right back out again. That was the first outwardly mean thing he ever had done to me, because he'd always been kind to me prior to that. And so that was very painful. But that was like that nudge to push me away so that I could heal right without him. And so it was the next, I think that was around August or September of 2017, I think that was. And so 17 to 18 and 19, there really wasn't any communication between us. If I did send out an email or two during those years, he didn't respond. This year was the first year. He actually responded to a couple, but he was still treating me in his emails like a professional. He wasn't speaking to me like his true self. So it was very difficult to respond because you know, he still won't open. He still won't talk to me like a human being. Before I left seeing him professionally, I had asked him for 10 minutes after work, and he redirected the conversation and said that, oh, that wasn't a good idea. So he couldn't even give me 10 minutes of time face to face to allow me to speak up about what was really going on with this connection between us, which there was a lot of insinuation because I was in a professional environment. I couldn't talk about everything there because he was a married person. He could ask me anything, but I couldn't ask him because he would redirect, or it wasn't appropriate because it was, you know, an open door professional environment. So to this day, he's never truly talked to me about our connection face to face. I feel him every day in connection. Whenever I cry at a movie, he comforts me. I don't feel the sexual energy much anymore, thank goodness. I don't know if it's because he's disconnected in his relationship or what it is, but I don't feel it as much anymore. The first year or two were very traumatic because obviously it's not just the sexual energy that you feel aroused when they feel aroused, but literally when he was being touched down there, I would feel myself being touched down there. And as you can imagine, and I'm sure a lot of you have experienced, maybe not everybody experiences that because their clairsentience may not be one of their strong abilities, but you know, that's very traumatic because you're being touched by someone that you're not with, that, you know, that isn't the person you want to be with, while loving the person that is being touched as well. It's a very strange experience. So anyway, I don't feel that much anymore, but I do still feel his energy every day. I feel his love energy every day. It's just about, like everything is an opposite. It's about detaching, but not letting go at the same time. It's always that opposites coming together to create that vacuum of loving yourself, which is loving everyone else at the same time. So I hope just explaining some of that might be helpful to some of you guys. The last time we emailed, he basically cut me off because I was explaining to him that he basically said that he couldn't give me what I wanted, but without talking about anything. It's just, you know, a couple sentences. He would never give me more than that by email. Maybe at another time. And I felt he was being very condescending, saying, you know, maybe in another life we could be together, but not in this one. So he was kind of cutting me off. And then I basically said that there's nothing I want from you. I feel you sexually. We have this connection, you know, like, why can't we just communicate? And then he basically cut me off. So that's my situation. I most of the time I am in a more 45D place where I can let go of this and I understand. And there's always those times where I'm not, and I feel like I'm doing something wrong. What is it I'm doing that other people understand and I don't? So I'm just like you guys. I'm still going through this. And then letting go. All right? So we all go back and forth between the 3D to 5D, between the masculine and the feminine, and needing to have faith, needing to trust, needing to keep your heart open, right? So patience and faith, I say that all the time. That's the whole journey, because it is about faith, because it's divine timing. Your soul knows how this was supposed to play out, and it will play out how it's supposed to play out. But just as 3D humans, it's very hard for our minds to wrap around that. So I hope this was helpful to you guys. Rise and be love. Oh, I'm going to leave, and I haven't even told you about the cards in front of you. All right, so after I started crying in the kitchen this morning, I came out, sat down, and I pulled these cards from the energy deck to say, what does the universe want us to know, right? What is the point of me processing through this today? So the cards that came out, these were the first cards that came out. The action card of the 2 horses here. Okay, this is the first card out. 17 is the star. That's the healing, the shining your light. Being, you see the 2 opposites of the coin, the black and the white, and taking action, right? Being your free, loving self. And then we have the 7th chakra card came out, which is all about the feminine and the being the 5D gate holder. The cards up top, these are underlying energies, right? This was the bottom of the deck. Here's the masculine being the 3D gate holder, exactly what I just explained to you. 37 is the King of Cups. This is the third chakra, being confident on that 3D level, right? Being a very powerful healer and loving person. And here's the feminine as the 5D gate holder, right? With the crown chakra, the 7th chakra, Archangel Uriel. We have Shamuel over here. So, and then the contract between us, okay? And the balance and having faith, right? With the eyes blinded, using your third eye and having faith and balance. And a few books as well when you need them, all right? So just everything that we were just talking about came up in these cards here. And then the second set of cards, which also can be with the contracting, because the contract goes both ways. Because then we can have the, for those of us who are in caring connections, it can be, you know, the feminine with her children, or the feminine in a relationship still, the masculine still in his relationship and his marriage, or this could be the twins in relationship together, the door to personal healing and happiness by contract, wherever your contract is right now. So again, that can relate on all levels. But then I wanted to show you these underlying energies up here, because this was the bottom of the deck. So this is as it goes this way, okay? So you have victory. You have victory, okay? You have peace of mind and knowing. And this is the 28 of the twins. Let me show you the numbers. This was 17, the star, which is about the healing, shining your light, of course. And then we have the 7th chakra, the 41 of the Ace of Cups, right? This is the feminine, being the Ace of Cups energy, which is self-love, spiritual love, new love, overflowing love for everyone. And then the contract, right, with you, your self-contract, and then your contract in caring connections over here. That's the number 6 of the lovers, which is not only lovers, 6 in general is the number of family, love, and community, okay? And then we have the caring connections card, which is 14 of the temperance card, of having patience with each other, right? Being loving and kind, that love is patient. And then 34, which is the 8 of Wands, that energetic exchange back and forth, the door to personal healing and happiness through your third energy, healing both of your relationships in order for you to come together. Okay, that's that 34. And then the 28, of course, like I said, of the going into these underlying energies, we start with the 28 of the twins and the victory of going within and regaining control of your life after obsessing, right? And not understanding how to regain control of your life because somebody won't talk to you, or that what they think of you is more important than what you think of you, or that feeling like you can't find happiness without them sharing your life. All right, so then you become at the Y in the road and you're dealing with all these base chakra issues. You see all that red at the Y in the road. And the number of the 8, doing the dance, learning to do the dance, and becoming strong in your foundation so that you can choose any path and still find happiness, all right? And then finding happiness and walking away to love yourself first. The 27 is finding the new passion, going on your mission, finding something that truly inspires you, that will lift you up. And you notice how pink it is, very much pink, of high heart and compassion. And then you walking away and finding your passion, making you a more passionate person, becomes that door to romance. It's the key to your heart, to opening your heart again, right? The 33 is the Christ vibration. It's the 7 of Wands, standing up for yourself without being defensive, right? You don't care what other people think. If they don't like who you are or the way you want to live your life, then you need to walk away. That's okay. It doesn't mean you don't love them, but maybe you're not meant to spend time together right now. And then you have the 4 of the Emperor and the happy family, and this doesn't mean this is two adults and 2 children. If you're a single parent with your children, it's about the 4 of the Emperor and having control over your life, right? Being a balanced and loving family, no matter who your family is, whether it's you and your children, your spouse and your children, just you and your spouse, or you and your community as your family, the twin flame community, finding happiness together, that rainbow energy. And then coming back to the underlying energy, which is the 3D, and being confident in who you are. All right? And learning the masculine. This is the masculine end of thing. The 3D gatekeeper is the masculine. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. Please comment below if you'd like to. And again, everything, all my information is below if you'd like to reach out. And as always, make sure you drink your water, get your rest, get your joy, get your nature. Be good to yourselves, be patient with yourselves, be faithful. And you're doing everything right, don't worry. Rise and be loved, guys. I'll talk to you soon.